Hello, BookTube. Feeling a little bit under the weather still, but I wanted to get back to making videos, especially since while I've been gone, BookTube has been asking questions. And it's well known that Steve has the answer to all questions. So there are no rhetorical questions. There are only questions that Steve answers and questions that Steve doesn't. And BookTube has asked a couple of those questions. I thought I'd deal with one of them today very briefly. Greg, at Another Bibliophile Reads, did a video in which he asked, he titles the video, "Is video editing software evil?" And he mentions going down a rabbit hole. He mentions a progression on his own channel that I imagine is echoed in a lot of people's channels, where he started off his BookTube channel just wanting to turn on the camera and talk about books, talk about what I think, what I've read recently, what other people are making videos about. The heart and soul of BookTube, in my opinion, is exactly that, conversation between friends. I know that's not the only way to view BookTube. I know there are plenty of people out there who do not view it that way. They view it as a business, as a lecture hall that you pay to get into and maybe pay to get out of. But there are a lot of people on BookTube, a lot of people on YouTube just in general, who don't view it that way. They view it very informally as just a conversation between friends. I would imagine that on Tuesday, when the United States hears, the Trump court hears oral arguments for revisions to Section 230. If you don't know this story, you will soon be learning about it. It is definitely going to affect YouTube. I would imagine that those oral arguments will put the crosshairs squarely on the phenomenon of whether or not people, or just ordinary people, can turn on a camera and talk to each other. I would imagine that's true, and I don't think it's very hard to guess how the Trump court is going to rule in June. It'll hear oral arguments this coming week, and then it'll rule in June, and it will, of course, rule against freedom, against happiness, against engagement, and against any kind of social phenomenon that has ever been mean to Donald Trump. Which means, as some analysts have said, it's likely that June of 2023 we will be able to kiss the internet goodbye as in the shape that we know it. Now, how that will affect the rest of the internet, I don't know. I think it's pretty obvious how it will affect YouTube. And I believe that the effect it will have on YouTube will once again prove that Steve was right. I've been saying all along, when the subject comes up here on BookTube, I've been saying all along that BookTube is the Wild West. It's television before television was regulated. And it can't stay that way. It absolutely can't stay that way, that a multi-billion-dollar corporation lets anybody come on, make a channel for free, and use its server farms. The server farms for YouTube, if you put them all together, are as big as the state of Indiana. It costs a huge amount of money to run and maintain them. It costs a huge amount of money to run and maintain a platform. Same as network TVs. In network television, if you have a great idea for a TV show, good luck. Who cares? Maybe you might get it past your local access station, but a network? No. No. You need to already be huge. You need an army of people pitching it and polishing it and shaping it into something that will work with demographic tested groups. In other words, what YouTube clearly wants, what it has clearly been moving towards by inches anyway, is a platform in which the big, very vendor-friendly, advertiser-friendly channels, a huge subscriber base, and curled off, sanded down content are the only people on YouTube. And ordinary people just talking to each other, unaccountable to anyone, are simply not allowed. You're simply not allowed to do it. And I'm amazed that hasn't happened yet. I am sure that in YouTube boardrooms, that is the goal. Can we please stop carrying every single human being on earth and concentrate on the people who are making us money? I believe that the Trump court will rule against Section 230, and when they do, YouTube will use that as justification for what they wanted to do all along, which is to say, you can apply to have a YouTube channel, and we'll vet your application, and our answer will be no. But we shall see. In the meantime, it's still, right now, the huge 90% shrubbery at the bottom of YouTube is still people just talking to each other, just like Greg mentions in his video. Just turn on a camera and talk for a while. See if you can find an audience of like-minded people, or even people who disagree with you but really like disagreeing with you. In other words, what I used to refer to as this little corner of BookTube, people who are just talking to each other and exchanging ideas. And Greg mentions in his video that he started out that way, but then he started wondering, well, maybe it would be nice to put up pictures of book covers in videos, something, give you something to look at other than my face. Maybe it'd be nice to strain out the ums and ahs or the awkward pauses or my infamous background noise, things like that. It might be nice to do that. What if I were to find just a very simple, very non-intrusive video editing program software and try it and see if that works? See what that would be like. And he did. And then the rabbit hole started to open. And eventually he decided to buy video editing software to get a little bit more bells and whistles. And that led him into seeing all kinds of other vistas, all kinds of things that you could do, visual effects and sound effects and whatnot, adding all kinds of things, not just rudimentary book covers, but all kinds of things. And he asks in his video, is that an evil process? And I'm here to answer, yes, it is. It is an evil process. And why is it evil? Because it's vain. And vanity is evil. I know that's going to sound a little odd coming from me, but nevertheless, the minute you start looking at your own footage, it starts to become footage for you. It starts to become a performance for you. The minute you look at yourself in an editing suite, even if it's free and absolutely bare bones, suddenly you're noticing the ums and ahs. Suddenly you're noticing what could or could not be changed. Suddenly you're noticing your presentation value for row 30, which is not part of conversation between friends. I think you'll agree. In fact, between friends, there already exists a computer software that strains out the stray ums and ahs and awkward pauses. It's called the human brain. Unless someone is being really, really egregious, if they're saying like every other word, unless they're being really egregious, your brain strains that out anyway. And so do the brains of all the listeners on your channel. The only way you become hyper-conscious of it is when you play it back to yourself. And the way you're most likely to do that is if you are playing it through an editing software, lifting the audio off what you're talking about and then laying it back on, having components of the whole experience be broken apart like that. Is there anything more likely to make it all seem artificial, to make it all seem like a stand-up comedy routine for an audience past the floodlights who you can't see, which is the exact opposite of turning on a camera and talking to your friends? It's a bad effect. It turns ordinary people into performers. Now, if you've got Shea Stadium sold out and you're making a year's worth of money on that one show, okay, maybe fine, be a performer, although the best performers are still completely genuine even when that's true. But you don't have Shea Stadium sold out. You don't have anything. If you've heavily monetized your channel, you're probably making couch change money. There isn't anything riding on it. In other words, there is no necessity of doing it. It's not as noticeable as you think. It's not as bad as you think. I have the frickin' Indy 500 running outside my window in almost every video. People barely comment on it. And when they do, it's funny. It's fun. It's something we have in common. Oh my God, isn't that background noise sometimes really absurd? Other than that, no. It's not a big deal at all. Editing software is evil because it introduces an element of complete artificiality into an exchange that should be completely natural. It's already a little bit artificial to be talking to a phone or camera instead of to people in a room. But I phase that out pretty quick, and I bet Greg does too. I bet a lot of your favorite booktubers that might have seemed awkward at first, they phase it out right away, and suddenly they're talking just the way they would in a room with people, with flesh and blood people in person. I'd be willing to bet that's true for a lot of people. But the more editing stuff you enter into, a basic editing program that allows you to put up a picture of a book, sure. But even there, I mean, a lot of my favorite BookTube channels do that, so I obviously can't decry it. And it is a convenience. If there were a totally convenient way for me to do it, I would do it. If, for instance, YouTube, which is making a huge amount of money off every one of us, had as part of its basic suite of tools for uploading a video, the ability to not strip the audio and lay it back down, not look at your production as frames in a Spielberg movie, but rather drag and drop. Just drag and drop. Pause the video right here. There's a little arrow signal with a little sign that says upload or drag and drop the picture you want right here. With a little dotted line box around it so that you can move it around on the screen to where you want it. You have a picture of a book cover from your desktop. You drag and drop it over to the computer, and there it's done, and there it's in the video. that would take a YouTube software team about 15 minutes to implement. They don't do it because they're in bed with all of the third-party options and apps that cost money, like the kind that Greg bought that cost money to do that really well. They don't want to do that for free because then they're undercutting the profit they can make from hosting those apps. But if they did have an option like that, I would certainly take it. And as it is, I have to make do with putting pictures up on an iPad. That's fine by me. But the more you go down that rabbit hole, the further away you get from the idea of talking with friends, and the further towards the idea of performing for an audience you go. And in my opinion, that makes it evil. I don't think the ability to have for just the ordinary simple folk like you and me, I don't think our ability to have videos on this platform is going to last long. I don't think, in fact, that it's going to outlive 2023. I think it will hear its death knell in oral arguments this week. The Trump court, the evil justices, the justices on the Trump court will make it pretty clear where they stand. Most of them have already. I think the death knell, the first hint of it will be sounded when oral arguments are heard on Tuesday. And I think in June, the full death knell will be noted, and that YouTube and other platforms will have to make a decision. Do we let ordinary people put unsupervised content up on our platform, even though now we are legally liable for what they do? Or do we not? I don't think it takes a Svengali I don't think it takes a Karnak the Great to know what way they're going to do, what direction they're going to go in. We have a perfect example in the television industry, which was faced with that same decision 100 years ago and made the sensible decision, or not 100 years ago, but 50 years ago, 60 years ago, they made the sensible decision from a financial point of view, from a stockholder point of view, which is no, we're not going to be responsible for that. If the federal government, if the Trump court is telling us that we're liable, if somebody comes on and says, here's the home address of someone who called me a poopy head, well, then we're going to stop people, just ordinary people, from being able to have a channel. So, my prediction was that down the line YouTube was going to say to its creators, either you monetize and adhere to guidelines, so no swearing, no controversial opinions, no controversial subjects, not even mentioned tangentially. So you're reviewing a book and the book is about rape, you can't mention it. You have to skirt around it completely. And also, you have to monetize. You have to heavily monetize your channel. You have to be making us more money. Either you do that or you can't make videos. That was my prediction a couple of years ago. I think that has always been YouTube's goal, to stop carrying the dead weight. I think they will probably use a federal decision, a Trump court decision, as justification to change the way they operate. So I don't think we have that long to be talking just as ordinary people. Here on this platform, there'll be other places where we can go. I'm sure there will be. But for now, I'm arguing that anything that increases the artificiality of this experience in the limited time that it has left is evil. So there you go. That's my answer to Greg's question. Is editing software evil? Anything more than just garden variety basics to aid visual aids for your viewers, yeah, I'm saying it is. But it might end up not mattering anyway. We'll see. We'll watch the decision for Section 230 and find out how it goes. Anyway, I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.